Good morning, everybody. For those of you guys who don't know me, I'm Pastor Joel. I'm one of our pastors here at the warehouse. And today I'm excited as we're diving into week 4 of this series. And each week we're recapping a little bit from the previous weeks. This is all really super important stuff. But then we're dropping in new tools, new habits, new things for you to keep in mind as we're going through this message. Hey, Abby, you want to do me a favor? You want to run this back there to them in the sound booth? I was like, why is this in my binder? So we're dropping in different tools for how we can be successful at winning the war in our minds. And so as we're talking about this, we're going to be looking at different tools, different techniques to overcome these battles. But I want to start off by asking, I wonder how many of you guys would say, you know what, I've got a pretty decent life. Like God's given me a pretty good life. If I'm being honest, if I'm like, you know what, like in the grand scheme of things, when I look across the world, like I'm doing all right. You guys can relate to that. How many of you guys say I got a pretty decent life? A lot of you, okay. Now, how many of you would say, but I find myself complaining about my life quite a bit? Anybody else? Yeah, like we all have a pretty decent life, and we all complain a decent bit, and I'm no exception. I'm no exception. I can be a hypercritical person. I know I can. I know that's one of my biggest flaws. And the thing is our lives can be pretty special most of the time. It can be things can be going pretty great most of the time, and yet our minds tend to drift towards the negative. Like we could have like 95% like awesome things going on in our life, and we can focus and dwell on that 5%, right? Like you could have 10 amazing best friends in your life that you're super close with, and then some stranger is a turd to you, and you're like, what's wrong? And you interpret it through this lens, like there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with all of humanity, or whatever it might be. And so what we do know about our minds is that, as we've been talking about throughout the series, is that our minds are literally a battlefield. And that, just as Andrew mentioned, our battles, the battles of our minds, or sorry, our battles in life are won or lost, started beginning in our mind. Kind of like, how many of you guys play sports? All right, I have a lot of sports analogies today, so you're in luck. But anyway, so in sports, like, you guys ever like go into a game and you think you're going to do terrible, like you think the game's going to go awful, you think your team's just going to get destroyed. You're like, man, that team's, and what happens? You do. Or you can go into a game like with an overly inflated sense of confidence, like we got this, and you actually perform better than you normally would. And kind of like if you're a runner, how many runners do we have in here? Like track runners, cross country runners, all of our runners. Somebody's really excited about running. So I used to be excited about running, and then I hit my 30s, and I'm like, nope. Anyway, so like if you're a runner, one of the best things that you can have around you when you're running is somebody who's a better runner. Like I don't like running with slower people. I want to run with people that are faster than me, because it makes me better, because it makes me step up my level of competition. And so it's because that's how our minds work. Is it steps up to the plate of whatever our expectation is. Because what we find is that what tends to come to your mind comes out in your life. Like if you what comes to your mind comes out in your life. So if a bunch of negative stuff is coming into your mind, and you're letting your mind just be flooded with that, and you're letting those thoughts just sit and dwell there, and live there and take up residence, then you're going to feel negative, and then negative is going to pour out of you into your circumstances, because that's going to be what you respond with. But if you dwell and choose to think positively about different stuff, then positive stuff, positive actions will come out of you as a result of where your mind is currently. In fact, we read at the beginning, our first week that we were down here with this series, we read a verse in Second Corinthians, and we're going to read it again, 2 Corinthians chapter 10. But I want to do this a little bit differently. So Paul's writing this message, this letter, and in this part, the way that this part kind of reads is like a battle cry. All right, and it's like, you guys know in like war movies, in war movies when everybody's like getting all ramped up. How many of you guys seen the movie Braveheart? I know it's like a classic. There are just a few of you. Well, like like basically you have like this whole like line of people like that are ready to go to battle, and you have what's his name? Oh, why am I drawing a blank? Yeah, Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson's like he's running around and he's like yelling at them and he's like getting them all pumped up and he's like blah 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 freedom and everybody gets all amped up and it's the if you've probably even seen commercials mocking it with the white and blue paint and all that stuff. Well, it's kind of like that is how this verse actually reads. Or where all of our athletes at again? Who's all the people that play some sort of sport? You guys know, like before a sport, like you guys with your teams like get all amped up and stuff. Like you get in like that huddle and you start like yelling and screaming. You guys know what I'm talking about? You got and or like we always did that in our locker room and we'd go nuts. We'd be like banging on lockers and stuff like that. Especially like we had wooden lockers, which is weird, but like we're at an away game and they had metal lockers. Man, it sounded so great when you're like banging on those lockers and it's so loud. And so we get all pumped up and everything. That's how this verse reads, all right? And so every time I say a word from this verse that's kind of battle cry-esque, that has something to do with like battle or fight and all that stuff, then I want you guys to yell it. All right, we had one student awkwardly last night, like just screech really loud. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. That was not what I was asking. I want you to yell this like this is gonna be like a roar. All right. So each of these words. So let's go through that verse up there. Every word that you see highlighted. All right. I want you. So do me a favor. Everybody stand up. All right. So do me a favor, just like you would if you were in that huddle, that pregame huddle. You're not just gonna stand flat-footed like this, like let's go. And like no, like, you don't do that. All right. Like I want you to get like one foot in front of the other, like that good forward lean, like you're ready to like charge this mountain. You guys ready? All right. And so I'm gonna read this verse, but then I'm gonna point to you for every highlighted word. So read along with me. All right. All right. It says this. It says, "For though we live in the world, we do not wage." Man, that was good. You guys far exceeded my expectations already. I just want you to know that. We do not wage as the world does. The we with are not weapons of this world. On the contrary, they have divine to strongholds. We arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take every thought and we make it to Christ. Man, great job, guys. Man, I am super. That feel good for you guys? Did that feel as good for you as it did me? But yeah, so Paul is writing this letter, and this is how, like, when the apostles and stuff, when they would write letters, all right, to these churches, it wouldn't be like this letter would get there and they'd like pass it around, like, all right, like you're passing notes in class. Like, what would happen is this would get sent to the church, and it would be read in front of everybody. And so you can imagine that reader for the church in Corinth, he's reading this, and people are like, yeah, we do. We do have divine power. We do take captive every thought. We do have spiritual weapons that we fight with. And it's kind of like this rallying cry to this church that is living in one of the darkest, like worst cities in the world at the time. And this is how it's being written is understanding that we are different. We are different than the world, and we wage war differently in the world. And that's what's going to make us successful. That's what's going to make us overcome these battles of the mind, is because we have a different way of fighting. You see, as we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks, is in our minds, we have these neural pathways in our brains, which are like these trails that are kind of woven in our brains that get formed or forged whenever we think a thought. And the thing is what that means is every time you think a thought, all right, especially when you think a consistent thought over and over again, every time you think that, the more it becomes ingrained, the more it becomes hardwired in your brain. And so the more you think a thought, the more it becomes regular, the easier it becomes to rethink that thought or to end up rethinking that way in general. And so today, that's what we're working on, is understanding how our brains are wired certain ways and how our brains, because of those thoughts that we've continually thought for so long, how they actually create like default settings in our mind that cause us to sometimes falsely interpret life's situations and relationships. And so what we're going to talk about today is what people call cognitive bias. How many of you guys have ever heard of cognitive bias before? A couple of you? All right, so what cognitive bias means, the simple definition for this is it is cognitive bias is a mistake in our reasoning based on personal experience or preferences. So it's a mistake in our logic. It's a mistake in the way that we think or interpret situations and relationships based off of previous experiences. And so an example of this would be how many of you guys would say that, like, you know, like in our schools and stuff like that, like people tend to break up into different groups and cliques and all that stuff, and it's there's nothing wrong with that. It's just people getting together with people that have like interests. Like some people like particular like sports, and so they like hanging out with other people that also like sports because they enjoy talking about that. Other people like music, so they hang out with people that really just love music and talking about that stuff. Or some people love, I don't know, anime or whatever, and that you link up I don't know, you link up with people that have similar interests because you want to have stuff in common to talk about. But how many of you would say that there's been a group at your school or something like that? You're like, I just don't get along with that whole entire group. But like that group, like I don't know if I rub them the wrong way, but I know they rub me the wrong way. And it's almost like you create this default in your mind that if you see somebody walking in that group, you are already making generalizations. You're already making assumptions about everybody in that sphere, in that circle, right? Has that anybody else ever done that? It could, just be honest. Anybody else ever do that? Like you've made some assumptions about somebody. So only a couple of us. Oh, slowly, yeah, yeah. So we've all done that. It's something that we've struggled with. And the truth of the matter is you might have had a bad interaction with one or two or three people in that particular group that you've lumped them in, that you've ascribed them to. But then there's also a whole entire group or of people within that group that you've had zero interactions with. You have no knowledge of them. You have no relationship with them. You really don't know them, but you make assumptions about them like, well, they're probably like this. They probably think this. They probably act like this. They probably said stuff about me too, just like that their friend did. And you make these generalizations, you make these assumptions because we create this bias in our mind, this cognitive bias. We create this basically this lens that we interpret that whole entire group of people through. And what happens is we filter it. It goes through a filter that ascribes certain characteristics to anybody in that group. And so, like for example, last night, one student was like, "Yeah, everybody on the back of my bus acts like a jerk." And I'm like, "Everybody?" Like, yes, everybody. Everybody's a jerk. Like I don't think everybody. Like some people are back there just like, you know what? I like sitting in the back of the bus. It's bumpier. You get a higher bounce off the railroad tracks. And like that's some people's logic. Other people are like, I'm going to sit back here because I know I'm going to say and do stupid stuff. But not everybody is back there for the same reasons. So to just like make a generalization, like everybody back there's a jerk. That's not true. Now I sat on the back of the bus and I was a jerk, but not everybody sitting next to me was. All right. So and I get that. I understand that. And here's the thing is we create these filters that we look through and that we interpret all these different things. And so this is why two different people can be in the exact same situation and respond completely differently. All right, like for example, going back to the sports analogy, you can be on a team, right? And the coach can just like you guys aren't performing well, you guys aren't, and you're not practicing well, so you're not winning games. You're not practicing like you should be practicing, and so the coach like just like one day is like had it, and they yell at the entire team. Has anybody ever had that before? Okay. The coach like yells at the entire team, and one person can be like, "Dude, coach, like what are you doing? Like do you know how grateful you should be to even have me on your team? Like I am the best second string midfielder there's ever been. All right, and you should be grateful. And yeah, I might not have ran my hardest on every one of those sprints, but you had us do like 3. Like that's way more sprinting than I wanted to do. And so if you even knew, and like you got all on your feels and you're offended that he would correct the whole team, including you, like some nerve. And then you got somebody else on the like also on the same team who got yelled at just along with everybody else. Like, yeah, we do suck. And yeah, we do need to work a little harder because we don't practice hard. And there's a reason why we're bad. Like exact same situation where you're both getting yelled at by the same coach, the same people and all that stuff. one person has one interpretation, like this guy should be grateful. I'm even on the team. Like I'm God's greatest gift to ribbon twirling, and then the other people are like, no, like he's right. We need to step up. We need to do better, And that's the thing is, it's the exact same situation. Nothing's changed except for you have different people interpreting it through different lenses. And this is how our cognitive bias works. Is what our cognitive bias is. It's the filter and the lens at which we look through everything. And so a great example of this in scriptures is in Numbers chapter 12. You have 12 and 13. You have Moses and the Israelites. They have came out of Egypt. They've been rescued out of slavery and captivity a pretty miraculous way. And now they're about ready to enter into the promised land. And before they enter into the promised land, they send 12 spies into the land to go check it out. And so they send these 12 spies in. They check it out, and this place is amazing. It's glorious. Like the food there is just like huge, and all that stuff. And so you have two spies come back, and they're like, man, Moses, like, I can't wait to tell you about this place. Like the food is amazing. The city walls are huge. We got a lot to build with and work with here. It's going to be incredible. I can't believe not only did God deliver us from all of that, but he's bringing us to all of this. And man, it's going to be incredible. Let's go. And so that's what two of them said. The rest of the 12, the other 10 are like, all right, Moses, I got bad news, dude. Those guys, like, not only is the food there huge, so are the people. All right, it is big. Their city walls, they're fortresses. Like, there's no way we can take this place. And even if we got through the city walls, we're going to get annihilated because like the people there are giants. Like we look like grasshoppers to those guys. All right, like we're dinky, we're tiny. Like we do not stand a chance. All right, and so now keep in mind, all 12 of these spies, they went to the exact same place. They saw the exact same thing. They witnessed the exact same people, but they were looking through two different lenses. One was seeing the obstacles. The group of 10, they're seeing the obstacles. They're thinking, there's no way we could overcome this. The other two are like, we remember what all God brought us out of. Like that's just a little bit of time ago. Like we've seen what all our God can do. And so these aren't obstacles. This is opportunity. And let's go, let's roll. And so you have the exact same situation, all the exact same information, and two totally different interpretations. See, and what you find here is it's not the facts that change. They're dealing with the same amount of facts. When you get yelled at by a coach or a teacher, your whole class gets yelled at by a teacher, you're dealing with the exact same set of facts. What it comes down to is the interpretation. And so what that means is it's all about how we frame it. Not only is it the way that we filter, because the truth is the way if you change your filter, you will change the field. If you change the filter, you'll change the field. If you learn to start filtering stuff through a different lens, the way that you'll interpret and experience those situations will be completely different. But it's not only the filter, it's the frame. It's the frame that we put that information in. Just like a picture, like if you have a picture in your house of like an old picture, like an old family picture, like you don't even have to see the picture. You know it's an old picture because of the frame, right? You're like, that's that frame that they don't sell at Walmart anymore. Like that thing's old. You know what I'm talking? Like that thing's been around for a while. And so even the frame that you put it in, it changes the feel of it. And like I said, so does the filter. Kind of like, how many of you guys ever did like one of those things where you travel to, like, I know they have that like Idlewild in different places where they have like the old booths where you can dress up wearing like stuff from like the 1800s and dress like a cowboy and stuff. You guys ever do that? Like, you guys ever do the family photo that way? Yeah. Like, now the thing is about that picture is if it's done right, they don't just have you put on like clothes that look like they're from the 1800s and just take a regular picture of you, right? You're like, no, you'd be like, wow, that just looks like something taken in like 2015 with me wearing old clothes. Like, no, they put like that sepia filter on it. You know what I'm talking about? So it's like all yellow and it makes it look like this picture's been around for 130, 140 years, like since like the 1880s. Like that filter that they apply to it, the filter that they apply to it makes it feel vintage. It makes it feel old. And not only that, then they give you that little paper frame that goes around it. It also looks old too. It's all yellow and brown and dingy looking to make it look old. See, because the way that we filter and the way that we frame information will completely change the way that we interpret it. And so today what we're going to be talking about is what we would call an adaptive tool called reframing. Now what reframing is, all right, the definition of reframing would be it's creating a different way of looking at a situation or relationship by changing its meaning. By changing its meaning. So just like when how I said, there's two different interpretations with that coach situation. Is you can choose to say, I can't believe that people would take me for granted. All right. And so anytime somebody critiques something that I'm doing, I'm going to assume that they're taking me for granted and they just don't know any better. All right. They're just ignorant. All right. Or you can choose to frame it a different way of, hey, that person cares about me. That person wants to see what the best come out of me. And so they're going to push me and they're going to challenge me because they want to make me better. And the way that you frame that will change how you interpret that situation. That's the same reason why one set of team members can be like, dude, can you believe this person? While the other set of the team members can be like, yeah, he's right. Let's go. Let's do better. And so here's an example of how you can frame a day two totally different ways in your life. The thing is, you can get up early in the morning. You can very easily be like, you know what? It's going to be a hard day. All right. I got so much due today. I got so much homework that I didn't do last night. And I know there's going to be more homework today. I go to school with these people who, man, they're just idiots. And I don't know when I'm going to get all this stuff done. I feel just so overwhelmed. I'm tired already. And I just woke up. You know what? Life is hard. Life is just bad. You know what I mean? You can go about that. You can start off that day just getting out that frame. And you know what kind of day you're going to experience? You're going to experience a hard, rough, bad day because it's the way that you already framed it. And meanwhile, that you can take that exact same day, you can choose to reframe it, all right, and you can get up in the morning. You be like, you know what? I've got a lot going on today, but I am so thankful that God is with me because I could not do this on my own. I'm thankful that He's for me. I'm thankful for the school He's given me. You know, even all the people at my school, like I'm thankful that they're there. Like I don't easily get along with all of them, but you know, I'm thankful that they're there. And I believe today's gonna be a good day. You know, I got a lot of stuff to do. I got a lot of stuff to get done. It's gonna be hard, but it's gonna be good. And you can look at that day through those two totally different frames and lenses, and you're gonna have two totally different experiences. And then the same goes for each and every one of our lives. That if you were to think about a situation, if you were to think about how you even pre-think about that day, it will change how you experience it. And here's a great example of it. In the New Testament, you have the Apostle Paul. Now, the Apostle Paul, he's this famous missionary, and he is on a quest to reach as many people for Jesus as he can. And so he has this plan that he wants this dream, this goal, this vision, this bucket list item that he wants to make it to Rome someday because he knows that Rome is the central of like the known world. He knows this is the central power. This is the centralized center for influence around the world. And so he knows that if he wants to reach as many people as he can, he needs to travel to Rome. He needs to make that part of his missionary journey. But something happens on the way, in the process before he gets there, and he basically gets arrested. And so when he gets arrested, he gets thrown in prison. He gets shipped off. He gets shipped off to Rome, literally on a ship. Shipwrecks. All right, he gets bitten by a snake. All this stuff happens. He finally gets to Rome. All right, and he's in prison there. Not only is he in prison there, he has to be chained to a guard 24/7. So every 8 hours, somebody's coming in, relieving the other person, and they're chaining up another person to him. All right, and so he's going through all this stuff, and he knows that he is awaiting trial with the emperor. All right, with the Roman emperor, he's waiting trial where he knows it's probably going to wind up with him being beheaded. Like he knows that there's a death sentence coming his way, and you can imagine how he could easily interpret that situation as what if you were to take the verse that he writes in Philippians chapter 1. It'd be very easy if he was looking at it through a bad or a negative frame. It would read like this. Now this is what we'll call the new whiner's version. All right, and so this is as if he was like whiny and just complaining and all that stuff. This is how it would read. All right, and it says it go like this. It's like now I don't want you to now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me, what really sucks. As a result of all this garbage I've been through, you know what? I'm quitting Christianity and I'm never going back to church. Like, I'm just done with it. Like, he could have easily wrote that verse and we'd all be like super inspired, right? Like, oh man, he's got like so much give up in him. Like, I want to be just like that. Like, no, like that's not a good verse, and that's why it's not a real verse. All right, that's trash. You know what he actually says, the guy who's really is facing all that stuff, who is facing a death sentence. This is what he really says in Philippians chapter 1. He says, "Now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel." All right, like these guys who were trying to stop me by throwing me in prison, it's only made my platform bigger. As a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. Remember how I said he's literally chained 24/7 to a Roman guard? Paul doesn't see this as, man, I can't go around and reach other people. What he realizes is every single 8 hours, I get a brand new influential person in the kingdom of Rome chained to me where I'm not a captive. I have a captive audience. So do you know what this guy has to do? He gets to sit here and listen to me tell him about Jesus for the next 8 hours. And then give me another guy. All right, bring him on. Let me tell him about what God's done in my life. So he sees this as an opportunity, not an obstacle. So he goes on, he says, and because of my chains, like remember, his goal was to go there and to reach and connect with as many people. All right. But he says, because of my chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. See, here he was wanting to go as one person, traveling around, trying to meet as many people as he could. But what he does is he inspires thousands, like tens of thousands of people to be bold just like him. So he multiplies himself. Instead of him being one guy running around, you have thousands of people who are like, man, that guy's got it going on. I want to be just like that. And now there's thousands of people like him running around because he's not giving up, because he has no quit. And see, and that's the thing is we can choose to interpret our situations differently, and they'll provide completely different results. So I want to give you guys three really simple tools for what we can do. All right, so three simple tools for what we can do to think and change how we think through and interpret life's situations. And the first thing that I want you to do is to think or thank God for what didn't happen. Thank God for what didn't happen. How many of you guys have like had that situation where you were running late for something, you're all frustrated, and you're like man, my mom or my dad's always late, and now I'm gonna be late to practice because of them, or whatever, and you're like all this stuff, and then all of a sudden you're on your way there finally, and there's like a big accident on the way, and you can tell that it happened pretty recently. You guys ever had like a situation like that? And in that moment, you're like, man, thank God that we didn't leave on time, because we could have been in that accident. That might have been us. And it's one of those things that when we stop and recognize what God, all the things that didn't happen, all the things that didn't go wrong, we can learn to be grateful for those things. The second thing that we do is what I'd call pre-framing. Pre-framing, and what pre-framing is this is deciding how you will frame a situation before you even engage in it. All right, it's deciding how you're going to interpret it before it's even happened. Like for example, going back to the sports stuff, my senior year of high school, I practiced football for our team. That's right, I practiced 4 years of football, and I got very little playing time. I got probably less playing time than anybody does in like 3 weeks. All right, and so I didn't get a whole lot of playing time on our football team. And normally, like a senior would be pretty upset about not getting any playing time, like for whatever their sport was. And this was like my main sport at the time, or at least I thought it was. And so it would have been really easy for me to be upset. It'd be really easy for me to be frustrated, like, man, like I'm a senior, I should be getting playing time and all that stuff. But what happened, what changed was I became a really, really strong Christian my junior and senior year of high school. And my senior year, I had these two guys that were brand new to our team, that they were just devout atheists. Like they hated God, they hated Christianity, they hated everything to do with Jesus. And they knew I was a new Christian. They knew I was like very strong in my faith, and they sought out to try to destroy my faith, to try to like turn me away from Jesus. And so they would ask me question after, because they weren't good either. So we all sat the bench together. So we had nothing to do but for them to like just be jerks to me and ask me like they'd ask me like questions, like not even questions they really wanted to know, but just to like be jerks, like, hey, how come this? And then, well, what about that? And so like at times like I'd answer their questions. Other times I'm like, well, let me do a little bit of research and get back to you. And so long story short, and throughout the course of that season, like instead of getting up and like or being ready for like football practice, like yeah, let's go. Like I might get playing time today. That wasn't happening. All right. And so, but what happened is I learned to pre-frame football practice to where I wasn't worried about how much playing time I was going to get or how much experience of football I was going to get. I was excited about the mission field that I had with people that God brought into my life that I would have never connected with otherwise. And so what happened throughout the course of that season was I got to lead both of these students to Jesus. All right, throughout that football season. All right, our football team went 10-0. We went into the playoffs and all that stuff. It was amazing, like Cinderella story record and all that stuff. And I could care less, honestly. I got to lead two people to Christ that football season. Like at the end of the season, like all the seniors are crying, like, "Oh, it's our last year." I'm like, dude, this was amazing. Like I got to like these people are now going to be in the kingdom of heaven because I learned to pre-frame practice to where I wasn't looking at it about what's practice going to be like today. For me, it was like, what's church going to be like today? Because I'm taking these guys to church. All right, I'm leading these guys to Jesus, and it made all the difference. And so when we pre-frame our situations, it changes how we're going to view it. And then last but not least is we learn to reframe it, like what we've been talking about. And a great example of reframing, the best example I can think of is a few years back, we did this illustration right here on stage where I decided to have Riley Smith and a couple other people try to catch me during a blindfolded trust fall. Now, have you in mind that this illustration had worked very, very well 3 other times. Did not work so well this particular day. I fell like I was supposed to. They just didn't catch me like they were supposed to. And it was fairly rough illustration. Didn't go how I wanted to. But something that Riley Smith did that just absolutely amazed me was instead of taking the situation and like feeling defeated and like, man, like this is such garbage, blah, blah, blah. Like that was so embarrassing. Like it was embarrassing for a little bit. But what he did, he took that situation and he decided to look at it through a different lens. He decided to reframe it. And so one day we're doing like a kind of like how we have pink out night this coming Wednesday for Wednesday night. We had a whiteout night and we had like black lights on in the gym and all that stuff. And for whiteout night, Riley made his own white T-shirt with like something drawn on it. And what he did was he chose to commemorate that time that they dropped me right here on this very stage. And so he made this shirt to commemorate it. And what he did was he was saying, you know what? I'm going to own that moment. I'm going to make light of it, and I'm going to give it purpose. I'm going to give it new meaning. And I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to share Jesus. I'm going to use it as an opportunity to encourage my friends to come, all that stuff. And so now you have this thing that sits in the frame in my office because we took this moment that could be like, oh man, like where we could feel so defeated. We're like, no, we're gonna reframe that as one of the funniest, like one of the most amazing things that honestly like bonded us like no other thing could. So he chose to reframe this moment in time to say, no, I'm going to choose how I interpret that event, not let that event choose how I interpret life. Which brings me to our bottom line, what I really want you to know and get out today, and that's this, is that we don't interpret the goodness of God through our circumstances. We have to learn to interpret our circumstances through the goodness of God. I'm going to say that again. We don't interpret the goodness of God through our circumstances. It's not like when you have a bad day, God's a bad God, all right? We learn to interpret our circumstances through the goodness of God. That whatever I'm going through, I know God's good. So that means I know God has good for me in this. And that's what I want you to grasp today. Lord, I thank you for bringing us all here. I thank you for your word, and I thank you for your love. God, I just pray that you continue just to reshift and reframe our minds so that we can learn to interpret life through the lens and the frame that you call us to, God, so we can see the world the way you do and no longer through a negative, scarred, or dirty filter. So, God, I pray that you help reframe our minds, reframe the way that we think and view the world, and God, in a way that will honor you. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen.